Continuing with the series, in the sixth preview of the 12-part opponent video series, we're going to talk about a team like Ohio State that is in the second part of the series that has gone through a lot of turmoil off the field, and that's the North Carolina Tar Heels. Where do you begin here? You start with a change at the top. Butch Davis is out. Everett Withers is on an interim basis. When you look at the Tar Heels on the field, they do return 12 starters from last season. Offensively in 2010, their offense was so-so at best. However, they did have many of their skilled position players sit out due to suspensions. They averaged 395 yards a game last season, including 264 yards passing a game, and averaged 25.3 points a game. With TJ Yates now graduated, it's now Bryn Renner's team. He was a blue chip recruit out of high school, and many expected big things out of him last year to be the starter, but he was not. TJ Yates won that job. He's going to have to take over for a guy that completed 66.8% of his passes last year for 3,418 yards with 19 touchdowns and just 9 interceptions. So he's replacing a guy that was very efficient last season. He has the talent. However, it's going to take some time for him to adjust to the system, though this is third year in the program, and he was redshirted 1 year. The backup is A.J. Blue, also a sophomore like Renner, who might see some action this year. Blue brings a different dimension to their offense. He is a better runner and could be the spark needed for them to establish an effective running game. And speaking of their running game, last season it was one of the worst in the country, averaging only 131 yards a game, and they haven't had a 1,000-yard rusher in Carolina since '94. However, they get Ryan Houston back, and at 6'2" and 245 pounds, that is a man among boys to try to bring down. He missed all last season because of an NCAA investigation, but has eligibility restored in time for this season. He could have played last year, but he wanted to redshirt after being cleared in October. 2 years ago, he rushed for 191 times and 713 yards and 9 touchdowns. They must replace their top 2 rushers from last year in Johnny White, now with the Bills, and Sean Drawn. Hunter Furr played mostly on special teams last year, but the junior will be the backup this year, and redshirt freshman Gio Bernard tore his ACL last August, and he didn't play it down, but he is the future at that position, and you expect them to see him get the ball this year. Devin Ramsey is a better lead blocker, but he'll get a few carries as well, but he's better as a fullback. Their receiving corps, this might be one of the best in the ACC. They get Jones back, and he's the biggest star among their receivers, and you'll definitely see him playing on Sundays next year, provided he stays healthy. In 2010, he had 62 catches for 946 yards and 4 touchdowns last year. Also back for them are junior Jirani Boyd, who versus LSU had a huge game, 6 catches, 221 yards, which included a 97-yard touchdown catch. However, the rest of the season, he only caught 8 more passes with 2 more touchdowns. If he could be more consistent, he will be a dangerous weapon. Junior Herrick Highsmith, who had 25 catches last year for 348 yards and 3 touchdowns. Senior Christian Wilson, freshman Sean Fitzpatrick, and junior tight end Nelson Hurst, who transferred from Mississippi State, will be also effective targets for Renner. The receiving corps will be in good shape here. As for the O-line, they do lose 2 starters, but they get back Jonathan Cooper, who was an All-ACC second-teamer, and junior Brennan Williams. Mike steps in as a starter at left tackle, but played 10 games last year as a backup, so there's some experience there. Defensively, this defense was decimated by suspensions, but the silver lining was their younger players got experience for this season, something they wouldn't have after starters started last year and not been suspended. In spite of that, they still had a top 30 defense, especially against the run. To emphasize that point, in 2010, Carolina gave up only 339 yards a game, including 126.4 yards on the ground. They only gave up 21.2 points a game, and they get back in 2011 on All-American and Quentin Coples, Dante Page-Moss, Kevin Reddick, and defensive backs Trey Boston and Jabari Price. The defense will be strong for them this year. It could be even better than last year. And this defense is going to be dangerous. Now, on special teams, they get all-world kicker back Casey Barth. Last year, he was perfect on extra points and was 19 for 22 in field goals. The funny part is he's never made a kick longer than 50 yards. And he had 3 touchbacks in 66 kickoffs last year. That's an effective weapon to have. At punter, C.J. Fiegels, son of longtime punter and former Cane Jeff Fiegels, returns for his sophomore year. He took over the punting duties after 3 weeks last year when he replaced Grant Shollick. Fiegels had 46 punts last year with a 37.5 yard average and 2 touchbacks and 10 inside the 20. As for the return game, they must break in 2 new returnees with the graduation of Denoris Cersei. It's not clear who will win this job for Carolina, but Boyd returned several kicks last year, and it wouldn't surprise me if he returned kicks for them this year. When you look at the schedule in 11 for Carolina, they do host James Madison, Rutgers, and Louisville out of conference. In ACC play, they host Virginia, Miami, Wake, and Duke. Their toughest games this year will be against Miami, Louisville, and perhaps Rutgers. They do have to go to East Carolina out of conference, and in ACC play, they have to go to Georgia Tech, Clemson, North Carolina State, and Virginia Tech. All are tough but winnable games for Carolina. When you look at that schedule, 8 is doable for them, but realistically, with all that's gone on in Chapel Hill, I can't see them winning 8. My prediction for Carolina is 6-6 in 2011 and 2-6 in the ACC. In part 7 of the 12-part video series, I will preview the 2011 Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. See you then. Bye.